The road to hell is paved with good intentions. I'm sure you've heard that phrase before, and it is apt to describe the horrors of modern-day South Africa. Now, it should go without saying, but I need to say it anyway to stop the professional complainers from misrepresenting my views. The apartheid regime of South Africa was truly appalling, and it was important that it was actually removed. However, the good intentions of then actually led to a hell-like experience for many. Racism is once again endemic in South Africa, only this time it's actually racism against white people. Former President Jacob Zuma, he once sang a song entitled "Shoot the Farmer, Kill the Boer," and it was at an African National Congress event. The ANC is the ruling political party there. And in 2017, when a statement about a tax on white South African farmers was being read in their parliament, one ANC MP yelled, "Bury them alive." Now, the plight of these farmers has been tragic, with reports of torture and beatings, stabbings and shootings, quite commonplace. And of course, few want to know what is happening over there because it doesn't fit the enlightened self-narrative that has been determined for all of us by media types. Now the country is subject to widespread riots, and lootings and petrol bombings, as witnessed by Sky UK.
This is looting on an industrial scale. There are thousands of people here really with bikes and furniture and microwaves and anything they can carry. And the police, they're really just looking on from above. There doesn't seem to be anything they can do.
Well, the latest unrest is actually a product of the jailing of the aforementioned Jacob Zuma for contempt of court after he refused to appear before a corruption investigation. Food is scarce over there, and as of July 13th, a couple of days ago, 72 people have actually died. Now, the disgraceful conduct has been described by the Jacob Zuma Foundation as, and I quote, "righteous anger of the people of South Africa, which others have characterised as violence." How else can you characterise it? With lootings and burnings. It's an eerie parallel to the disgraceful BLM riots in America, when senior Democrats then excused and endorsed the violence and the mayhem because it suited their political purposes. However, in this case, the world has largely turned a blind eye. And I say racism and lawlessness, whatever its form, it's not right or wrong, good or bad, based on your political tribe or the colour of your skin. Unfortunately, for the regressive left activist, they think that is the only way to measure the morality of action. And joining me for Straight Talk is the leader of One Nation in New South Wales, Mark Latham. Mark, what's your take on what is going on in South Africa?
Well, your comments there, Corey, are refreshing and spot on in that this tragedy there where there's a complete breakdown in law and order, shopping malls look like war zones, the place has become completely lawless, and South Africa now looks like a failed state. This has been ignored substantially by the mainstream media in Australia, and I think one of the reasons is that the lasting legacy of Mandela, it's like there was a bit of Mandela magic in that country at one time, and then you can't question how it could change and develop in the decades since. But it's all gone to seed, and it really just shows that no matter who's running your country, no matter their skin colour, if you haven't got law and order, if you haven't got a cohesive civil society, if you haven't got a government that's relatively corruption-free, if you haven't got economic incentive, well, these are the scenes that you get. And it's a broken country, similar to other parts of Africa. It's a humanitarian crisis that's emerging and developing as we speak. And I think people have got to forget about Mandela magic. They've got to forget about a romantic aspect of that period of South African history. It's all gone to seed. And there's got to be some hard-headed analysis of what's gone on, and hopefully for the sake of the people there, a restoration of order, and where you haven't got an environment where the pro-Zuma forces started the looting and all the poor people have joined in, thinking that it's open slather on shops and shopping malls, and look at there they are, just piling and grabbing whatever they can. I mean, these are scenes reminiscent of some kind of civil war and breakdown.
Well, Mark, you make some excellent points, and picking up on the Mandela analogy, when the seed for change is pure and it is planted, it doesn't mean the tree cannot be criticised or trimmed or cut down later on. That's what we've seen here, as you've pointed out. We saw it maybe with the Black Lives Matter protests in the US as well. The intentions were good, but ultimately they're hijacked by corruption, by Marxist forces and other things, which are you've got to be able to call out, and you can't be colourblind to this. We can't be behaviourally blind. We've just got to say what is actually true.
Yeah, well, you had some unique historical events where obviously the apartheid regime was horrific, and then there was the great hope and romance. You know, it was like a fairy tale, the whole Mandela story. He had a past that's still debated today and was by no means perfect and pure. But he was adopted that way across the Western world, and I suppose many people had a sigh of relief that apartheid had ended. But that, that's 20 years since Mandela left office, and since then, the lesson is compelling. I've spoken to some Australians who lived in South Africa for a long period of time in recent days, and they were the smart ones to get out. They saw it coming. And they tell me that the corruption is right through every aspect of government, right from the top, and Zuma's been jailed with justification, but right down to every government official, police officers, the army, the whole system has an epidemic of corruption. And this is the breakdown that you get. And it doesn't matter about skin colour. If you can't have clean government, law and order, the rule of law, there's not much hope for you. You certainly can't run an economy, and you end up with generations of poverty and people who do these things, part desperation, part crime.
Yeah, you're exactly right. But you seem to be ahead of the curve in so many aspects. I love your straight talk, and I know our viewers do too. But you're always picking up on things that are happening here in Australia that are like the precursor to a divided society. And one of the things you picked up on today was cultural leave for Aboriginal workers. Now, once again, I say it's very hard for us to say, oh, we shouldn't be, indulging the historical culture for Aboriginal people. But why are we creating a two-part society? Exactly what is going on in corporate Australia, Mark?
Well, we've just spoken about South Africa, where they had a period where there was a racism against black people, and now some kind of reverse racism that's institutionalised in parts of their society. Do we want it in a format in corporate Australia? Well, this is what we're getting. I don't understand, Corey, how you fight racism. This is the allegation at KPMG and Origin Energy and Western Sydney University, that there's some sort of racism, and the response to it is a reverse racism of saying if you're Indigenous of a certain cultural background, you get extra days of annual leave. Well, what an insult to all the migrant groups that have come to Australia, I suppose, including your forebears, who would say they've got culture and national days and celebrations they'd like to have with some extra days of annual leave in their workplace. People born in Australia like myself, extra days of national celebration that we'd like, but it's only the Indigenous in these workplaces, so divisive, a new form of discrimination, where if you identify as Indigenous, you get extra days. It's almost like corporate Australia here is saying, oh, it's only Indigenous who've really got culture. What a ridiculously divisive and unnecessary concept. And this is the breakdown of cohesiveness in society that causes problems.
Yeah, it's very true. Now, my forebears deserve cultural leave because Italy won the Euro Championship the other day.
Exactly.
And I hope Stephen Conroy's watching so I can humiliate him with that. But in the end, I mean, KPMG, though, Mark, can do what they want to do. They're a private firm. But in the long term, it sends a very bad message to many of their employees that some cultures are more equal to others. Some employees are more equal than others. It smacks of Animal Farm, doesn't it?
Yes, it does, and it builds resentment. This account at KPMG was given to me by someone inside the organisation, bitterly resentful of the fact that even though they've got a cultural background, it's not recognised that other groups are getting preferential treatment. There's a form of workplace discrimination in place, and you can expect this running through corporate Australia. The woke trend is real and unfortunate, but let's also recognise there's a publicly funded institution here, Western Sydney University, which is as woke as they come. I'm terribly disappointed. I was one of those supporting a university in the region where I've lived for so many decades. But geez, haven't they gone woke? Haven't they gone out of touch with community values in Western Sydney? And Corey, unfortunately, you could expect this regressive divisive trend in other public institutions. How far away would the ABC and SBS and other universities, even schools, be, the teaching profession be, from this sort of wokeness that divides our society and causes so much division?
Yeah, it's what we don't know and what you continue to discover that shocks us. So, Mark Latham, before I let you go, lockdowns are causing a lot of angst around the place. Governments are overreacting as far as I'm concerned. Are you a champion for freedom in this space? Have governments got out of control?
Well, I'm a champion of proportionality. This is way, way over the top in New South Wales. Well, whole local government areas that haven't had a single COVID infection are living in lockdown. People have gone out and got vaccinated and allowed to leave their home. Well, how does that make sense? Wasn't a vaccination going to be the panacea here, that if you had a vaccine, you could live a normal life? So, you know, it's way over the top. The situation in Fairfield 2 nights ago was horrendous. And there's so many absurdities. You know, Corey, there's a golden rule. When government tries to get involved in things, they normally mess it up. And the fact they can't define what an essential worker is, that basically, if you feel like you're essential, you can be in this environment, just makes people think, well, geez, the rules of government are unfair, unnecessary, and this lockdown is just way over the top.
Yeah, Mark Latham, when it comes to government, conspiracy or cock-up, generally it's just a cock-up. I love
well, this is a massive cock-up.
Thanks so much for your straight talk tonight. I appreciate it.
Thanks, Corey. Cheers.